Hi, and welcome to the Miles with Moms podcast. We are your hosts, Whitney, Olivia, Shanna, and Trisha. This is a podcast for moms who run by moms who run. Our goal with this podcast is for mother runners everywhere to never have to run alone or feel alone in their mom life struggles or journey to accomplishing big goals. Because guess what? Taking time to take care of yourself and to chase big goals as a mom is not only okay, it's awesome for you and the lessons you're teaching your kids. On this pod, you'll hear the four of us talk about the real or even ridiculous going on in our lives. We will also be sharing tips to help you be your best on and off the roads. Sometimes all four of us will be on and sometimes not because, you know, mom life. And sometimes we may swear, so be careful if you have little ears around. We are so excited to have you join us in our Mother Runner Gab Fest. Now, real quick, we want to reach as many mother runners as possible, so please take a minute to rate, review, subscribe, and or share this podcast. And if you want to connect with us, you can do so on Instagram at the handle Miles with Moms Podcast. Now let's get to the show.
Hello, Mother Runners. We are so glad you are joining us. This is the Miles with Moms podcast. I am Whitney Hines. I am a mom of two, and I'm joining you from Tennessee.
And I'm Olivia, and I'm joining you from Utah, and I'm also a mom of two.
I'm Trisha. I'm a mom of three from Richmond, Virginia.
I'm Shanna. I am a mom of six. And I'm in Utah. I'm surprised.
Yeah, and Olivia and Shanna, but originally a California girl.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know which one's worse. Depends who you're talking to.
You guys ran a race in Vegas over the weekend, Shanna and Olivia?
We did. Yep, we
Yeah.
did.
And how was that? It looks like it was brutal, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was. So a lot of our local races, like Southern Utah is known to have a ton of races, but a lot of them are very, very, very downhill. Like St. George Marathon just happened, which was super exciting. We went out and cheered, and we were like so stoked to finally go to our own race environment and stuff like that. So, but we were just looking for just a course that was a little bit more flat, just just a different elevation gain. Yeah, like different. And
Flat
so
in quotes.
we were looking at it and we saw, 400 feet elevation gain, but it showed it not necessarily super rolling. And anyway, like we started, like it was funny. It was a smaller race, and right beforehand, I had told Shanna two things. I was like, I'm really worried about the water situation because I kept being like, my mouth is so dry. And then it was hot already in the morning. And then I was like, well, I hope I'm not running by myself the whole time. And she's like, I bet you won't. And it was just so funny because the water situation was a joke and I was running by myself the whole time. It was
So hard.
Yeah.
And it was a half. It was a half.
It was a half.
Yeah.
So it was not like reusable. I read the website as reusable cups. So I figured you just like would drink out of these plastic reusable cups that they'll take back and wash or something. But it was reusable. Like I don't know. I've seen those like blue ones or whatever.
Yes,
but
the blue ones. No, those are real.
that's what I pictured. And then it was just like we noticed at the beginning of the race that it was just like the water tanks or whatever. And it was just, you had to fill up your own water. So like at the beginning of the race, we literally took our hands and filled up our hands with water. But those are what it was for the whole race. So it's like 82 degrees out. The sun is like the Vegas desert sun is like beating on us. Like taking gels with no water is such a joke. The whole thing was such a joke. It was so frustrating. Yeah.
So they didn't even tell you like you need a reusable cup, like bring a cup?
No.
I mean, I think when they emphasized it on the website, reusable cup, I think they were like common sense. And
yeah,
a lot of us, like on the course, like I was running with the lead guy, and he was like, he's a triathlete in training for Kona, and he was like, they don't have water cups. He was like so like confused. He was like, why don't they have water cups? He's like we were literally like compromising back and forth with each other. Like, if you stop, I'll stop. We'll both put our hands underneath, get a quick drink, and then keep going. We'll have enough time to still like, win 1 and 2. And it was a joke. Yeah. The water, like it was every mile and a half, which was great. But who's going to stop in the middle of a race and fill up their thing on a hill?
It was like on a hill,
Great.
like truly
it
there
was
was
not
some.
a trail race, right? It was
No,
like a
no, no,
road
no.
race.
It was on like
Okay.
a bike like path. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really nice
So,
course. It just
yeah.
was like,
Yes, it was just like a steady incline,
yeah.
like relentless. And then at one point, like I'm looking at my watch and I was like, this has got to still be a hill, but just not as bad of a hill because I was like, why can't I pick up the pace? This is so weird. And, on the way back, it definitely pays you back, but you lost so much time going out. And then it's funny because Shanna is so fast. I knew that I would see her at some point at the turnaround. And I was like, I just wanted to see my friend. I was like so excited and never saw her.
We
So I was
got
like,
lost.
that's crazy. The two of them were so fast that they didn't even have the turnaround set up yet. Or
Yeah.
maybe
Oh, my
someone didn't
goodness.
point you in the
Oh, that's
direction.
bad.
Yeah.
But so you got a little lost. I stopped my watch twice, being like, where go? Just on the way back, even because people had kind of left. It was like high schoolers. I think that they were having volunteer to direct people.
Yeah.
So, they weren't like cheering or anything. They were just like, go this way, and it was really funny. So anyway, Shanna was obviously first female, and then I was second female. And so it was like, but for my time, it was really funny that I would have gotten second. But that was like one of the positives of the race was we were like, we'll never probably podium together ever again. So let's get the picture. And we waited out there in the heat forever for them to call our names. And it was just one of those things where it was like, it was so funny. And we just wanted like a good baseline race as our marathon build started, but we did not. We did not
Yeah,
get.
we probably could have done better if we just did our own practice run locally.
Yeah. Yeah.
You built
seriously.
that mental toughness, though.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
love that you guys are
right.
laughing about it now. Like a lot of people would be really mad, I think. So.
Yeah.
You got a funny
I-
story out of it.
Yes, I crossed that finish line and I was like, the water situation? Are you kidding me? 'Cause they
It's
had these
funny you had a
big-
premonition about it. Like you
I
knew.
know.
Yeah,
that is
Well, I
kinda
just
weird.
kept feeling like all of a sudden I was like, wait, if that was at the start, what are they going to give us in the race? That is so weird that they wouldn't even
Yeah.
have cups at the start where people are there to throw. Like, I understand littering 100%. And like that's not something that they want to deal with after. So I understand the reusable cup thing. But if they didn't even have that at the beginning of the race where there are garbage cans everywhere, that was funny. I just was like, I'm really worried about this. And I kept walking back to my car and getting water because I was like, I don't know if this is going to be like easy to, because I was also worried about reusable cups. How easy are those to drink out of? But
What
anyway,
stopped you from just putting your mouth underneath the spigot?
Right. I don't know.
honestly,
Yes.
I did
I think maybe the
about that.
effort of squatting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like having
It
to
was
get
like-
down.
Yeah, I honestly thought about it so many times, and then
a good
it's
idea.
the effort, and I was like, if they don't have like I just was thinking I lost so much time on those hills
Yeah.
that I was like, I can't lose any more time, and I was like, if I just run for 6 more miles, I'll be back at my and I did see that they had big water bottles at the finish, like because I saw them. The finish was right where it started, and so I was like, okay, if I run for 5.5 more miles, I'll get one of those big waters. And then if I run for 3 more miles, all I could think about was those giant waters they had at the end. I think I grabbed like 4 of them
awful.
at the end. I'm not
What
even kidding. Like,
What about the guys that squeezed right in front of us before the start of the race?
yeah, I
Normally-
literally go.
Normally, at like any big race, I would be like, yeah, men, get up there.
Yes.
There's got to be some really fast men, right? Well, I think they just like looked at us and thought these girls aren't going to beat me. So they
Yes.
literally like right before the little 3, 2, 1, go. They got right in front of us, and I was
Yes.
like, "What was the point of that?" And like beating them felt so good.
Oh
I was
my
just
good.
like,
I bet it
"You
did.
guys deserve that."
Yeah, it was
Beat every one of you males out there that thought that you were like some hot shot.
Yeah,
Nice.
But I wasn't
literally
fast by
go.
any means.
I was like, I don't think that was necessary. And Shanna,
Yeah.
she's so nice. She was like, oh no, that's probably good. And then it was just so funny because like right
and
out
then
the
they
gate,
didn't even
just like
keep up. Yeah.
no. And then like 3 people at the end of it, like
Yeah.
we were waiting around and they were like, wow, you guys were actually fast.
And they
Oh
were
my
like
gosh.
so embarrassed. They kept saying how embarrassed they were that we beat them. And I was like,
Yeah.
I would have been embarrassed
Ew.
if you beat me.
Yes.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
What a backhanded
was funny.
compliment.
I
Yes,
know.
it was
Yeah,
so, like
good.
multiple people came up to us and said that, and it was just really funny. And we were like,
Oh.
by the third one, it
I'm
was like,
so
okay,
glad
this
you
is
beat them.
starting to be.
I
That
know.
is weird. Yeah,
I will say
I
that
love
we-
the compliment with actually in it. Actually,
Yeah,
You know,
guys.
yeah,
right.
actually,
Yeah.
seriously. But
And
anyways,
and Shanna, your whole like you got your all 6 of your kids and your husband in the car at 3 a.m. You guys all did that.
Yeah, I will say it was not like easy.
impressive.
I'm not gonna like play the like, oh, it's amazing. You know, I went back and forth deciding if I was gonna take my family or not. And then, I mean, last night, like the night before, I really wanted to lay in my own bed. I was just so tired. Felt like I was about to start my period, and I was like, I better start before my race, and then I didn't. But yeah, so that early morning, my husband had got up and he was like, we can all come with you. And I was like, I want you guys to. And then, the mom guilt slips in. You're like, yeah, but the finish line will be nice to have them there. And so I was like, fine, I have to leave in 15 minutes. So that's how it really went. Instagram kind of like highlights you and makes it look like it's just this beautiful story. But yeah, that morning was definitely, it was a last minute decision.
Wait, so you left at what time in the morning?
So here, because we're an hour ahead, so we left here at 3, and then we got there at like 5. So I always like to be there a little bit early. So I was like, we're leaving here we left here at 4, 4, and then 5, 6, and then it would have been 5 there. Yeah.
So you
we got there at 5.
woke the kids up. You guys threw
Yeah,
them in the
and they were
car,
super
and
excited. Like, they
Oh,
were
they
like,
were.
"Oh,
That's
that's
sweet.
And my kids, they wake up at like 5:30 anyways, so it's like it really wasn't that much difference
I was
for them.
wondering that.
So,
Yeah, if it's like
yeah.
they go to bed pretty early, anyways.
Yeah.
And Trisha, what's going on in your world?
Oof, not so much. Yeah, this weekend was just soccer and trying to keep my kids healthy because everyone is sick right now.
It's so true.
It's like it's too early. There's so much
know.
crap
I
going
know.
around.
We've missed. I had
Gosh.
the school social worker call me like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, we had COVID and flu
Oh.
at the same time.
Oh,
They were like,
that's awful.
your kids haven't been to
Oh,
school in 2
no.
weeks. I'm like, yeah, we've been really sick. I haven't had a chance to get you the doctor's
Oh.
notes. Like, yeah, I'm hoping we just
That's
get it
awful.
out of the way early.
I know.
but
I hope
don't
so
know.
too. Yeah, but other than that, it's like finally fall weather here, which is
Same.
amazing.
Yay.
I'm
Yeah.
wearing my Amazon sweater.
That's cute.
I love
I was gonna say
it.
I like the color of it.
Cute.
Thank you. I'm
I
so
know.
green
Yeah,
right
both of you.
now.
I know. I love it.
Fun.
Ooh.
Cute.
I love it.
Next time I'll wear my turtleneck too. I know.
Turtleneck chef. Turtleneck.
It's still 90 degrees here, you guys.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
It
I
was.
literally want
was
to
like-
cry. I'm so tired of the heat.
It was 87 here on Sunday.
it's the
So
high.
we were.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah,
it's
that's
coming.
us too. It was like all of
Yeah.
a sudden
Yeah.
where it flipped.
It's
Oh,
nice.
You're
so
giving
hopefully
me
it's
hope.
coming to you.
Maybe it'll hit here eventually. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have a hurricane here, so I'm like, I can't complain.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
Yes.
it could be
That's
so
very
much
true.
worse. So,
And so
Yeah.
we were supposed to go to North Carolina. We're on our fall break, and we were supposed to go to North Carolina, and obviously we're not. It's like
yeah,
and
so
we're
sad.
we found a plan B, but it's crazy. It was like 45 minutes from where I live is where that.
Wow.
I don't know if you saw the interstate collapsed.
Yes.
Yes.
To Asheville? Were you supposed to go to Asheville?
We were supposed to go to the
Correct.
Highlands. Do you
Yeah.
know where that is?
Okay.
It's in Western North Carolina.
Okay.
So
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's beautiful
sad.
when Trisha, for future reference for you
Okay.
in Virginia, you're not too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just crazy how much. And like we live right near the Tennessee River. We're like a half a mile away, and it's still so high and it's so brown.
Wow.
And they said it's
Wow.
going to stay like brown and gross for 2 years or something like that.
sad.
I know. Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez.
That
I
is
know.
really sad.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. Like that it would have a hurricane would have
Yeah.
that big of an impact so far inland. It's
Well, did
nuts.
you
It
see the
really
one
is.
that's brewing in
Yeah,
Florida right now?
Yeah.
Milton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents live in Naples, and I'm like, hello, what are you guys doing?
You're
Are
like,
leaving?
get out of there.
Are they
Wow,
getting
right.
out? Are they like,
No.
oh, we'll be fine?
My dad was working, like traveling for work, and he's literally flying into Florida today. Like probably the only individual in the world
Yeah, on
that's
the
flying
plane.
into Florida. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
I'm
That's
surprised they're
wild.
even flying into Florida right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I
It
was
looks
saying to my
bad.
mom, I was like, why don't you just get out? Like he doesn't come
Wow.
in, just leave.
Yeah.
So I know like Tampa is supposed to be hit the worst, and so they're
Yeah.
Naples,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
farther south, but still, I mean, it's not a
Still,
little
you worry.
storm.
yeah. Well, keep
Oh,
us
yeah.
posted.
A 5 right
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
big. Yeah,
I
it's
know.
gonna be crazy. I just felt so bad for everybody on that whole side. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
it's crazy.
know. I
It's
know.
crazy. The weather's been crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whitney, what's new with you?
That's it. I am very excited that this morning I was able to get out for my run and lift before anybody
Yay.
woke up.
Wow,
is
that's
amazing.
awesome.
That's
like
a
the biggest
win.
win ever.
That is a
Seriously.
huge win.
Yeah,
Because I
like we
think-
need to like
You know you're a mom when you get
Yeah,
so
no kidding.
excited.
Well, because the lift
So-
part too, that's
Yes.
impressive. Like the
That's
run,
like another
yes,
30 to 40
awesome.
minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
I didn't.
Impressive.
Well, I did not finish the complete. Like my daughter woke up and my puppy woke up, but they were fine. So I got to go back because most of my stuff is in the
Awesome.
basement. So I got to
Mhm.
finish it. And yeah, like when I come back from my run, if the front door is still closed, it's like a huge just sigh of relief. Like because that means that everybody's still asleep. No dogs have had to be let out yet. Like it just makes me so happy. So
That's awesome.
you
So
know,
nice.
started off on it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Started off on a good note. Yeah. Okay. So today, I would love to dive into, and I know you guys would too, comparison to our past selves before having babies, before health issues, before injuries, and maybe
Mhm.
even talk about the comparison trap when it comes to your running peers or dun 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 Instagram. Because
Dun, dun, dun.
dun dun dun, that happens.
That could go on for a long time.
That's
Mhm.
true, and we
Right.
do have school pickups and whatnot. So,
Mhm.
we could talk about as with any topic, we could talk about it forever,
Yeah.
but we can't,
That's true.
because we have kids and stuff. So, who wants to go first to talk about their comparison?
I vote
struggles?
Trisha.
I know.
You vote me?
She always goes
Yeah.
last.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so I feel like prior to the past 2 years where I've had a lot of health struggles, it was more me comparing myself to peers, to other runners, to people on Instagram, Strava. Like it's so easy to do. Even like prior to having kids, I used to run and train for marathons with a really fast group of people. And I was always the slowest one, which was in hindsight beneficial because it made me better. But I was always like, oh, sucks so bad because they're all so fast. But then having had struggles with my vestibular system over the past 2 years and a numerous bunch of other things, they told me that I had Crohn's disease for a whole year and I didn't end up having it. They misdiagnosed me with runner's dystonia that ended up being a vestibular issue, to where how it impacted, it was like all of a sudden I would go out on a run and feel like I was falling. So I had to run slower. And even since now I'm doing so much better and able to run a lot, but it's nowhere close to the paces that I used to be able to run. At first, it was very, very hard, like to the point where I didn't even want to attempt to run because I was so slow. And it was like all I could do was look at my pace and just compare, like, oh my God, like I'm struggling to maintain my recovery pace from what was my
Yeah.
norm before. And as somebody like you guys, it's like you're always striving to be faster and hit certain paces and hit certain times, and that's your goal to PR. And like I always wanted to run a sub-3 marathon, and I remember saying, like, if I don't do this, like I'm going to be really pissed at the end of my life. To where now, having had the struggles I've had, I can honestly say that I am just grateful to be able to run, and I don't care about pace anymore. But it took me all of 2 years to be able to get to that place, because it's so hard mentally to go from a place where time goals are your number one to really just enjoying putting one foot in front of the other. Because for me, it ended up being not that simple. I was literally having to focus and think about every single step I was taking. So to be at a point now where I don't necessarily have to think about my feet moving, I'm like, oh, like, this is so nice. Like, I literally just like smile all the time when I'm running, because I'm like, holy shit, like I don't feel like I'm falling. Like, who cares if I'm
That's
going
so
slow?
crazy because it's so
Yeah.
out of your control. I think that's what's
Right.
wild about it, especially when you are comparing yourself to other people. And with what you had, it was not like a bone injury or something like that. Like what you had was just so out of your control. So
Right.
yeah,
And
I
so
totally,
bizarre.
yeah.
And I remember even like sharing about it on Instagram. It made me feel crazy because I mean, I know nobody since talking about it. Like I've had people reach out to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with the same thing. but it's obviously
Wow.
not something you're coming across in runner's world. Like, it's really
Yeah.
weird. And people all the time would be like, oh, at least be thankful that you can run, because I could run holding onto a stroller, or I could run in
Yeah,
a
I
grass
never like it
field.
when people say that because it makes you feel
Yeah,
like
my goodness,
an
yeah.
asshole, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah. Yeah, and in the meantime, these same people would be like out with an injury, and they're like, oh, well, at least you can run. I'm like, oh, I'd actually rather not be able to run, because then I wouldn't
Yeah.
feel like a head case.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I'll watch
Yeah.
the same people recover and get back to running like no problem, while
Yeah.
over a year later, I'm still struggling with this stuff. But yeah, so
Do
it
you
definitely has changed.
Do
the
you think you're
comparison.
more joyful now? Like you love running more now than you did when you were going for your fast times?
100%. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Yeah.
Like I never come back from a run now ungrateful or being like, oh, I wasn't running this pace. Like I suck. You know, like I used to get really beat up on myself if I like did a workout and didn't hit paces, like, oh, or I ran a bad race and I'm like, oh, like that sucks. Like, you know, I would get really down on myself, where now I'm like, I know what it feels like to not be able to run. And that sucks way more than not hitting any kind of pace ever did. So
Wow.
I
Yeah.
truly I have such an appreciation for just the ability to run now that I never like, maybe I could say like, oh yeah, I'm so grateful that I can run. But I wasn't in hindsight.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
something that I still struggle with, like being out from injury for on and off for 5 years. Like I still am trying to just strip all the expectations away from myself, and like I don't try to think about goals too much or sign up for races or make plans, and just like be grateful for every run, but it's still really hard. Like those old habits die hard. Like I wish I could get a lobotomy that just like took out that like part of my brain that was, it was like, sorry, maybe I can come up with I don't know, amnesia or something.
Yeah.
Sorry. Amnesia.
Coma.
Just put me in, like, but I wish I could erase that part that was like,
Yeah.
you have to run this volume, you have to run this pace, you should be going after these goals, because I find it's very hard to I think it's hard to go after your goals and still have the joy. Like it's a very I think it's a tough balance.
Yeah. And you know how I switched that was switching to ultras, because that's when that like, oh, like why not just do something extremely crazy? But that really did help my mentality so much, because in talking to people in the ultra community, they're like, time doesn't matter. No, it's all about time on feet and just running. Like there's no one care if you talk to somebody after you run an ultra, you know who is an ultra runner and who is not, because the person that's not is going to say, oh, what was your time? Where an ultra runner will be like, did you finish?
Yeah. Or like, what kind of trees did you see out there, man?
What snacks did you eat?
What snacks? I know. I'm like, well,
How many times did you poop in the bush?
Did you fall asleep at mile marker 72 like I did?
Did you see that wild bear out there?
When
Hiding in
did
the
you
bush
start
on lap
hallucinating?
10?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You don't even
I
have
feel
to
like-
take
I feel
drugs.
like-
You can hallucinate on your own.
I feel like that's a common thing though. I see a lot of road racers who are just kind of like, they're done with like the pressure of times and the zap of joy that comes away from, chasing down time all the time. They end up going ultras. And I think it's because it still fulfills like that competitive, that competitive drive within a lot of us runners, because you are going these insane distances that are like inhuman.
Yeah.
But so it's still competitive in that sense, right? You're still pushing your mind and your body in a totally different, insane way, but you don't have to worry about the clock. And I notice a lot of, at least my friends and a lot of people that I know, they eventually do go to the ultra side to fulfill that. Like I have a sister that even dabbled into that. Like she would always win all the local races here, and she went through her own medical spill, and now she's back on the trails and doing these insane verts. And I'm just like,
nice.
Once a runner, always a runner. Like I swear. And ultras just fulfill like a whole different side,
It
So it's
does.
just
Yeah.
so cool.
Right.
Yeah, that once a runner, always a runner. So Shanna, you were a runner, and then you took 11 years off, and you had a bunch of babies, and then you went back and got back into it. But obviously, you were very different than the runner you were before. So I'm wondering if like you struggle with comparing with like high school Shanna or.
Yeah. I feel like for the first year, for sure, like that first year was really rough for me. I feel like I was like trying to expedite my fitness. And, you know, at the time I had a coach that was like that David Goggin mentality too. So it was kind of like we were bad for each other in a sense, just because we were both like, well, why not? Like, let's go for it, you know? Whereas like I really truly needed a coach that could see the long term, which is, you know, a coach I have now. But so that first 6 months was brutal. Like when I say brutal, like I had so many workouts where I was just questioning myself, like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to hit these paces? I haven't trained like this in years. And yeah, there was times where I literally would walk off the track and I'm like, I can't even do mile repeats under this pace. Like that's insane. Like that's so crazy to me. But I don't know. I think with the time and as I surpassed that version of myself back then, that's no longer my issue with comparison anymore. I think now my problem is seeing the bigger picture and seeing where those fast runners where I want to be one day and what their resume looks like and the time that they have, and they're getting massages and they're taking naps and they have, some of them maybe have like one kid, you know, and that kid is older.
You have one kid standing behind you right now.
I know. Anyways, and so I think my problem right now is comparing my journey and what my training looks like to what their training looks like, and feeling like, am I doing enough? Like you mentioned the miles, like how many miles you should get in a week. And my coach is very like, he's very detached from the mileage. He doesn't really, he does a lot of time, like 60 minutes, 80 minutes.
I love that.
Because he doesn't want you to get attached to the distance. Your body only knows time. Oh yeah, just 1 second, okay? And anyways, and so I think that's been my struggle, is like, okay, like I am a mom to 6 kids. My schedule is not going to look like theirs. I'm not going to have altitude camp for 6 weeks, you know, wherever I want to be. I can't expedite my training. I just got to work with what I have and, you know, make the best of it and be okay with that. Like be okay that with how unique my path looks and how different it's going to look as I continue to progress with my times. So that's been my struggle right now, honestly, is like comparing myself to these really fast runners and seeing what they had to do to get there. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like I'm a normal person, hobby runner with 6 kids. Like my life won't look like that, like ever. So
can I insert and say though, like the impact that you're having on the people that see what you're doing via Instagram or the real world is probably way more profound than the people who are like pro athletes or semi-pro athletes with the one kid and the massages and daily naps and stuff. Like, because people see what you're doing and they're amazed, and it makes them think like, well, if she can do that with 6 kids, I can figure out how to make my goals work for my life.
Yeah, I never thought about that. I think, yeah, I just like, I'm like, if they have to do this, I need to mimic that, you know? So
yeah,
but that's a good way to look at it. More normal.
It's way more inspiring.
Yeah, I think that's like why we part of the reason we wanted to do this podcast was so that we could talk about something that's more relatable, because we hear so many stories, like these interviews with elite athletes and stuff. And so, of course, some of them do have kids, but like with it being their job, that they have access to so much stuff where, you know, we don't have that same access, and we don't have that. I mean, that it's like that whole adage of like, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. Like we don't,
Yeah.
and you know, like
Yeah.
I don't have a company paying me that I can then go turn around and use to pay a babysitter, and you know what I mean? So, and same for you, of course. So I think it is so much more profound what you're doing, because it's like, okay, if she can do that and this is how she squeezes it in, I should maybe try that too, you know? But yeah.
I mean, Olivia, though, you have like an experience where you're newer to running, right? You picked it up later in your adulthood. You came
So
from
she
like
has
the
no
dancing world.
comparison.
Yeah, well, I'm curious
Right.
to know like how you
Yeah.
compare, how you deal with comparison in your own way because of that.
Yeah.
Like,
I deal with comparison. I'm not evolved from it at all. I compare nonstop. And part of it is a healthy comparison, especially when I was still self-coached. It was like I was watching people that were maybe putting out similar marathon times, and then I was comparing my workouts to theirs, and I was learning that maybe I wasn't working hard enough in some of my hard workouts and that I wasn't running easy enough in my easy workouts. And so comparing the certain things like that because I didn't have access to a coach to ask questions to, basically, which is, that's what a coach is there for. But when I'm trying to learn everything myself, and there's only so much you can Google and read where it just doesn't resonate anymore, and like where you're trying to inform yourself and it's like, hey, I've read the same thing over and over again. And like, how do you apply that? Right. So, and then there's the side of, we have this whole Instagram community and, people post their highlights. So that means that they're posting their speed workouts and they want to show off their fast times. And so you play the comparison game to that. And it's like, am I not doing enough? I look at that absolutely nonstop. And then people are putting out 100-mile weeks and I compare myself to that. And then I oftentimes have to just take a step back and be like, you know what, that girl, she might be my age, but she doesn't have kids. So yeah, she is putting out these, she can put out 100-mile weeks because she has the time to, where for me, like I have very small slivers of the day. Like, today my husband left for work at 7:15 this morning and I didn't even think that he was leaving that early. So I didn't run beforehand and it was dark out anyways. So I still ran on the treadmill while my kids were just watching TV upstairs. So, that looks very different than a 25-year-old that has the same marathon time and is working for the same goal that I am, So I do compare a lot to that. And then also a lot of times realizing that some people are really fast because they did run in high school and then they still picked up running later on in life, but that they ran in high school. So they have this whole background of it. And once I realized that, I can finally I'm like, well, I can't compare myself to that person. And I think when I start to get like that, it's really healthy to just take a step back and look at, one, how far I've come, and I don't mean necessarily with the marathon time. It's with the fact that I stuck with racing and running, stuck with running throughout all of this, having babies, having just no knowledge of how to come back from having babies and going back into running and exercising, just being confused and things like that. Like it's good to look back on how far you've come and kind of doing it, so much of it by myself. Like I did not have a running community for so long. And I wish I would have, because I think it would have helped so much just secure that feeling of like, it's okay to be where I'm at right now. But it's hard to just not fall into the comparison trap all the time. And like, it's fun having like Shanna as my fast friend. Like it's fun being able to look forward to where I'm going versus where I've been, like, yeah. And so I think that's really important, is just to kind of take a look at like, one, how far you've come, and just the fact that sticking with it is so much more important than anything else that anybody else is doing. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I fall into the comparison traps though so easily, is just, looking at people that are my age or have put out similar marathon times. And because I want these faster times so badly, that I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm going to overshoot and then fail, So, because even with this half marathon, I was like, as much as I can laugh about it, I was so disappointed just with the whole situation, like especially then, the day before St. George Marathon and half marathon happened, people put out insane times. It's super downhill. So people just fly down these courses. And then here I am running uphill, and
And we know how much you hate hills too.
I know. See, here I am talking about it again. Yeah. Luckily, I was by myself, so no one had to hear me. So, I think there's a healthy comparison where you're like, okay, am I doing enough? And, because if I'm like, say I do what I'm like, I'm going to skip this speed workout. I don't really want to do that. But then I'm like, oh, I really want to run a 2:55 marathon. Like, yeah, it's probably a good idea to look at like, like you might not be doing enough. I think there's like a healthy level of comparison. And then there's the unhealthy side where it's like you start doing things that are just not within your fitness or within your body or within your time and your lifestyle, where it's like healthy to, take a step back and be like, this doesn't suit me. This is not me. This is coming from someone else. This is coming from outside factors. So yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying that I compare myself to people all the time, and I just have to snap out of it every once in a while.
Not saying that, comparison is the thief of joy. I mean, I do think that, like you said, can be a positive when it's keeps you motivated and it's a positive force. But if it's a negative force where it's making you down on yourself or making you feel stuck or trapped or defeated before you even get started, then you need to block yourself. Like, I'm trying to think of my current journey singularly, like not looking back to, it's hard, but not looking back to what Whitney did, 5 years ago or whatever, what Whitney wanted, and just focusing on how I'm feeling now. And then I went private on Strava. That helped. I unfollowed.
Oh yeah.
I unfollowed some people on Instagram, and my running coach here, he has a big community, but it's pretty hardcore. They're very, very hardcore. And so I kind of have walled myself off from that as well, because while it may serve some people, it doesn't serve me well. And it kept honestly trying to plug myself right back into that community with the 5 a.m. practices and the doubles and all that. My body just couldn't handle it. So yeah, sometimes you have to protect yourself. If it's making you feel bad, then, don't expose yourself to it if you can. Strava was big because I don't want people to see what even if I don't think I'm running for Strava, I still, still, you kind of are like, well, somebody's going to be looking at this. So maybe I'll just go a little bit faster or farther. You want to hit a certain mileage. I do that where I'm like, well, if I hit 55 or 60 last week, then I should hit, and I get in my head about it, and then I end up self-sabotaging. So
that's such a good point. Just, even if you try to tell yourself that it doesn't matter how much, it's I'm already out here. I'll just go the one extra mile. I do that all the time. And I don't know if it's, I definitely felt like once I got a coach, the first 3 weeks, I was like, I need to perform, and but my coach doesn't, he's not sitting there is she going to perform? I'm can't wait for her Strava to upload. He doesn't care. I don't think he's in the country, he does not care. And it's so funny because it's this outside factor that's putting pressure on us, but then the outside factor doesn't even, they don't actually care, and I look back a lot, just even on previous marathon builds. I looked back at my grandma's marathon build, and I'm like, wow, I was running all these runs so much faster, and I was doing all these double digits and stuff like that. But I was also, there was probably 5 weeks out of that whole build that I was almost not going to do that marathon because I was having horrible knee pain from my IT band. And here I am, looking back, I was so much faster, but yet I was dialed back.
Cost? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I dialed back, and now I feel great, and I'll probably still run this marathon faster. I better. But I still sit back and I look at my Strava from before, and I'm like, wow, we were pounding out miles really fast, but I was in pain, absolute constant pain.
Yeah.
So it's so silly to let that affect us so much.
What about, we're running short on time, as far as running postpartum, because we all ran before and then we all ran after having babies. What helped you guys not feel completely discouraged? Because after you have a baby, I mean, first of all, the fitness isn't the same. And then also your body just doesn't feel like your own, right? I mean,
doesn't. Yeah.
Right. Did anything help you?
I kind of took the same kind of steps that you are now, Whitney, is I stayed away from the running groups because that would leave me feeling so defeated early on when I just couldn't, between sleep deprivation and hormones going crazy and you're just not, your body is not ready. but your mind is like, yes, like
Oh,
I'm ready to
yeah.
go. Yeah. So I stayed away. Like I just didn't run with friends or run groups until I felt more confident.
That's smart. Yeah.
Well, yeah, especially because you are like somewhat in a precarious position when you're coming back, because if you do push it too hard, I mean, it could not be good. So,
Right.
like, you do like need to protect your mental state, but really your physical state as well postpartum.
Yeah.
Anything for you guys that helped you, Shanna and Olivia?
I didn't really train while I was sorry. I didn't really train while I was pregnant. Maybe Olivia, you should go.
I'll talk really quick. Yeah. I did have my neighbor. So I had my son in 2020. So COVID was happening. Everybody was at home, and all the girls in my neighborhood wanted to start running. And so it did unfortunately push me back into running a little bit too quickly. I think I was 4 weeks postpartum and I ran my first 10K. It was fine. Everything worked out fine, but it could have not, something could have happened with my body and I didn't know. Like, I think I might have still been in Depends at the time, and which is too soon, And so, I was like, if I just run this in 72 minutes, and that was what I got. And I was like, I'll just be so happy. And it was so silly to like, why would I have felt the need to run at 4 weeks postpartum? Why?
2020 was a different animal too, because I had a baby my third in 2020, and I feel like there was just no. I mean,
yes,
I think I was probably 3 or 4 weeks postpartum.
So it's either
too. I was like,
you're running it Depends or you're going crazy. Like you had
Yes.
to choose.
Yeah,
running
yeah.
it, which that running it Depends might be crazy.
Pick your crazy.
Wouldn't advise that.
Yeah.
We do have the pelvic floor expert here.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't
If
do
there's
that.
a takeaway from this
Do
podcast,
not.
don't
It's
run
like
into
the one takeaway, right? Like when I tell you I just didn't know anything, but I felt fine. Like I think I was back on my Peloton, like, and I think now I'm like, oh, I just had a baby and I was hopping on a stationary bike. Like what? But I felt fine, and I had my like postpartum appointment and stuff, and they were like, yeah, if you feel fine,
Yeah.
Right. Of course they did.
they didn't.
We need to do better.
Yeah, no kidding. So I think that I felt like if I just stuck with it, I would get back to where I was, and I never did after my first, and then after my second, it was so much harder to start running again. But I breaking everything up into small increments, because she was also a very needy baby and she would always watch me run, so I could always have my eyes on her, and just breaking it up into like small 20 minutes at a time. And I truly did. I was such a different person before I had the babies than I was after, that like I don't think comparison even played a factor for a very, very, very long time. And then my first marathon, maybe my first race back, actually, after having my kids, I paced it. So there was no pressure on time except to finish within that time. And it really helped with like exposing to the marathon and racing world again, and just having fun with it. And it really, really, really took the pressure off, like that I didn't have to be this like fast person. And then I wanted to start working towards goals again. So that helped a lot. But just making sure that running was fun, right? Like, because it wasn't fun after I had my son. It just wasn't. I was miserable. I was just like trying to run 10-minute miles and I was like just dying. But it was just, just lack of knowledge. So yeah. What about you, Shanna?
Yeah, I kind of had like a unique like postpartum, because I didn't really like train or run or anything near like my potential. Like when I had babies, I think I kind of just thought like, I wasn't a collegiate runner. I decided to go the opposite route, and because of that, I was never going to be that runner again, And sorry, guys.
Cute girl.
And so throughout like a lot of my babies, I just like I'd pick up running every once in a while, but never like, it was like always like this random sporadic, like, let's go run really hard for like 4 or 5 miles and then be pissed at myself that I can't even like run that fast. And then, not run for like 4 weeks, and then maybe I'll go do it again, So it was like really sporadic for me. But I think like how I endured that was just like, I didn't follow like running accounts. I didn't like reading results on races. When I did race, I always took the stroller. Like I would run with the stroller and then like tell my husband, oh, I'll pace you, you know? And he was like going for like a sub 2-hour half marathon. So it wasn't like anything insane, but for him, you know, and I think that helped me personally, just like to separate and like not get competitive, because I was not in shape to get competitive. It was definitely hard. Like I would go through times where like I wouldn't even tell people that I had a running history. Like nobody knew. Like I broke a 5-minute mile my freshman year in high school. Like nobody knew that in Utah, because I never competed here, you know? And so that was kind of hard. And then, yeah, so I think for me, it was just like separating completely. Like I didn't use Strava then. I deleted the app off my phone. And I just like detached myself from the world completely, honestly.
Yeah, I think that helps to just kind of do it in your own silo. I want to hearken back. I can't believe I used the word hearken to the days when I ran with like my I don't know, my Casio watch, and I didn't have all the data. Nobody knew what I was doing, and all I knew was like, oh, I ran for 64 minutes. Good job.
Yes, good job.
Right.
I love that. Just I think like having fun with it, like I think that's probably, if like there was any advice I could give, it would be, can you just have fun while running and like enjoy the fact that now you're a mom, you're a totally different person. You're just a totally different person than you were before having babies. So taking the pressure off and like easing back into it much slower than you think you need to. Like, because the only person that's worrying about it is you. Like, other people aren't watching. They're excited for you that you had a baby and that you're running again, right? Like that's how it should be.
That's so
what
true.
I
always say to even like postpartum clients that I work with is like, nobody gets a prize for getting back the fastest, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's no race, there's no medal. So I think, focusing on having fun and detaching yourself from any kind of competition, if that's something that stresses you out, is 100% the way to go.
That's great. That's great advice. Yeah. We're not pro athletes here, so
Yes.
we don't have a Nike contract to uphold or something,
No.
right?
Pro butt wipers, though.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
but, like,
That's so, I can't believe that was the one thing I came up with. Like,
I
come
think
on,
we're
Shanna.
just going to bring it up every episode from here on out.
Yes.
Shanna, pro butt wiper.
I said the domestic engineer. That was Olivia.
Domestic
She said
engineer,
the pro
that's
butt
right.
wiper.
Awesome. Well, girls, ladies, mamas. I don't know why I said
Ladies,
girls.
children.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for chatting, and can't wait to figure out what we talk about next time.
yes, I know. This is so fun.
Aw.
Sorry, she sees her friend, so she's like, why isn't she talking to me?
Oh. I think that's a perfect way to end it. That sweet voice.
Yeah.
All right, you ladies have a good rest of the day.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening to the Miles with Moms podcast and letting us be a part of your run and your day. If you like listening to us, please subscribe, rate, review, and or share this podcast with your friends. Talk to you next time.